For more than 4,000 years, one single structure has just completely captured our imagination: the Great Pyramid of Giza. I mean, it is so huge, so precise, it kind of defies any easy explanation. But what if the biggest mystery isn't how they built it, but why they built it? Today, we're diving into a really fascinating theory that says the pyramid is not at all what we've been told. And that really is the heart of it, right? We're all taught in school that the pyramids were just these gigantic tombs for pharaohs. I mean, it's in every single history book. But the source material we're looking at today just throws a huge wrench in that idea. It suggests the pyramid's real purpose was hidden, just waiting for the right time in history for us to figure it out. And it's that incredible skill that really fuels all these wild theories. This quote from the architectural historian James Ferguson just nails it. He says the pyramid isn't just big, it's mechanically perfect. And that kind of perfection just makes you ask, how on earth was that even possible back then? And what was it really for? Okay, so to really get our heads around this theory, we first have to appreciate the pyramid itself. I mean, the sheer scale of it. Let's dig into some of the details that make this thing, the only one of the ancient wonders still standing, what our source calls Earth's chief structural marvel. And look, we are not just talking about stacking a bunch of big rocks. Get this. The famous Egyptologist W.M. Flinders Petrie was totally baffled. He couldn't figure out how workers could set these 16-ton blocks that's heavier than two elephants with joints that were only 1/50th of an inch thick and then fill them with cement. He called it almost impossible. We're talking about joints that are often as thin as a single human hair. Now, imagine that level of precision spread out over 13 acres. It's just mind-boggling, and it really sets the stage for this whole mystery. So, this unbelievable piece of engineering leads us right back to the big question. What was its purpose? Was it really just a super fancy tomb for a king? Or was it something else entirely? This is the big assumption that our source material wants to tear down. The story we all know is, of course, yes, the pyramid was built for King Cheops, also known as Khufu. But the theory we're exploring today? Well, it tells a completely different story. Okay, so here's the absolute core of the argument. On one hand, yeah, the name Cheops was found painted on some of the internal blocks, probably by the guys working in the quarry. But, and this is a huge but, our source claims that his actual tomb was found in a totally separate pit, about 1,000 feet away. So think about that. If his real tomb is over there, then what is this giant monument for? The theory goes that Cheops was involved, sure, but maybe even he didn't know the building's true ultimate purpose. And this timeline, wow, it really puts the pyramid's age into perspective. According to our source, it was finished centuries before other famous structures that are said to be divinely inspired, like Moses' tabernacle or even Solomon's temple. Now, this is absolutely crucial for the theory because it positions the pyramid as maybe the original message from a higher power, a kind of forerunner to all these later sacred buildings. So if it wasn't a tomb and Cheops wasn't the main guy, then who was the real architect? Well, this is where the theory gets really interesting. It introduces this mysterious group of outsiders who, it claims, were the true masterminds behind the whole thing. Pulling from the ancient historians Herodotus and Manetho, our source points to this group it calls the Shepherd Kings. Now, these guys weren't Egyptian. They were apparently invaders from the east who, according to these old historical fragments, managed to take over the whole region with surprising ease. And they weren't your typical conquerors either. The theory says they took over Egypt peacefully, without a battle, and then they made the Egyptians close their temples and put everyone to work on the pyramid. And then the source makes this massive leap. It identifies their leader, a shepherd named Philidian, as the biblical figure Melchizedek, the priest of the Most High God. So in this version of the story, King Cheops wasn't the genius architect. He was more like the local project manager for a divinely inspired construction project. Okay, so the theory now takes a sharp turn, moving from ancient history into the world of science and math. The argument is that the true architect didn't sign their name in hieroglyphs, but in the very numbers and dimensions of the building itself. It's like a code hidden in the stones. So to crack the first part of this code, we've got to dust off our old math books and remember pi. Yep, that number, 3.14159, the one that connects a circle's circumference to its diameter. It's a fundamental constant of the universe, and according to this theory, it's the very first key to unlocking the pyramid's secret message. So back in 1859, a researcher named John Taylor made a pretty wild claim. He argued that the shape of the Great Pyramid is basically a monument to pi. He figured out that if you take the pyramid's vertical height, it has the exact same mathematical relationship to the perimeter of its base as a circle's radius has to its circumference. It's not just a random pointy shape, it's pi, built out of stone. So you have to ask yourself, how could a civilization from 2600 BCE possibly know this mathematical constant so precisely? I mean, really, according to the source, there's no way they could have. And that, they argue, points to a non human, a higher intelligence, being the real designer. But the code goes even deeper. The theory says that the pyramid's own unit of measurement, what they call the pyramid inch, was actually derived from the planet Earth itself. Here's how it supposedly works. You take the length of the Earth's polar axis, so the distance from the North Pole straight through to the South Pole, and you divide it by 500 million. Boom. The result is 1 pyramid inch. It's an incredibly scientific and precise unit of measurement, supposedly being used 4,600 years ago. Just incredible.
And here's the absolute kicker. The theory claims that this ancient Earth-based pyramid inch is almost identical to the modern British inch we use today. The supposed difference? Just 1/1000th of an inch. Now, the source argues this is no coincidence. It's proof of a perfect, ancient system of measurement handed down from a divine source.
All right, this brings us to the grand finale, where all these different threads, the mystery of its purpose, the strange builders, the impossible science, they all get woven together into one massive conclusion. The ultimate claim of our source is this. All of that encoded knowledge, the advanced math, the incredible understanding of the Earth's size, stuff humanity wouldn't figure out for thousands of years, is basically the architect's signature. And that architect, according to this theory, was God himself. And the theory wraps it all up with this verse from the book of Isaiah. It talks about an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt that will be a sign and a witness. Now, for people who believe this theory, this isn't some vague prophecy. They claim it's a direct biblical reference to the Great Pyramid itself. It's the witness in stone. You know, it's important to mention that this whole line of thinking actually has a name. It's called pyramidology. It's this whole field of speculative theories that look for hidden, esoteric, or even divine meanings in the pyramid's measurements. And yeah, it's highly speculative for sure, but it's all fueled by the very real, very enduring mysteries of this incredible structure. So at the end of the day, we're left with this huge question. Was the Great Pyramid just the most incredible tomb ever built by a human king, an absolute masterpiece of engineering pushed to its very limit? Or, as the theory we've just explored suggests, is it something more? A message written in stone? A scientific and spiritual blueprint designed by a higher power, just waiting patiently for thousands of years for us to finally understand it? The answer, well, that might just still be buried somewhere in the sands of Giza.